Hey everybody, this is Bowen from Pure Investments coming at you with the very first weekly coin review. Series I and the rest of the Pure Investments crew will be starting, this being the very first, oddly enough, where we will be going over some currencies, some cryptos that we're looking at that week and are good to watch. I'll be starting this out with just going over general market movement. Various currencies I'm looking at for both short, medium, and long term, and when I'm looking at very short term, as in just this minute, and why. Thank you guys for joining us again from Pure Investments. If you haven't checked us out, check us out at pureinvestments.org. We're a great community. But anyway, let me get right into it. So, we're getting started with our top market cap currencies. So starting with Bitcoin, we have Ethereum, and then we don't have Litecoin. This has been something that's been big for me, and I know it's hugely new news, but I thought I'd bring it up anyway. It used to be Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and that was kind of how I knew it. But now we can see there's been a major change with Bitcoin Cash and Ripple drastically taking over Litecoin by 30,000. Sorry, 30 million and 34 million dollars respectively, which is a lot more money. And that's billion, not million. Excuse me. But this is a big change in the market, especially given that Litecoin is hosted by GDAX and Coinbase, and hosted by things that you can buy, exchanges where you can buy in US dollar, which is a big change because Ripple and Bitcoin Cash, you didn't used to be able to buy on GDAX or Coinbase or other of those USD sites. Ripple, you still can't. You can see we have huge market valuation and a price that's just been going up and up. I actually did some TA on it, and we will get there in the video. Bitcoin Cash, we saw a huge jump in price when it got listed, and then it kind of fell back down. I'm not a very big Bitcoin Cash fan, but I don't need to get into politics right now. We are still seeing Bitcoin at the top, obviously, still by a large margin, and we are seeing it decline. So I'm actually going to start right off with our major market movers. We're going to start off with Bitcoin. So I have a lot of lines. I'm sorry for the busyness on the screen. I use Fibonacci retracements to see where Bitcoin's movement is going to go, and I really think we're seeing a movement that I have illustrated right here. So Bitcoin always falls the 0.618 line. As you can see, I put a yellow line out right here. And I think we have two options right now. I think we could either see Bitcoin continuous upward movement, maybe hit, first hit 20K and then move past that. Or I think we could actually see Bitcoin drop down to the 0.618K, 6.18 Fibonacci line, sorry about that, line again, and then see it have some upward movement. I don't exactly know, but I think it would be very healthy for the market. If we were to zoom out here, just looking at the MACD, we usually have these dips. You can see one of our dips is right there. It really helps to reset the MACD. And if we look back even farther, sorry, I don't have the fastest computer here. We can see this dip actually caused the MACD to dip down, as did this one. All of them below the zero line. So what does that mean? Well, we have been having a crazy bullish run that has had the MACD way above the zero line, or around the 500 line, meaning that it has been in need for a correction. Now, given it's been in need for a correction since, what are we at right here? Since 4,400, and we've gone up, 341% since then. So I think it makes sense that we're finally having this downward movement happen. Whether or not the MACD actually resets below the zero, I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't. But I also wouldn't be surprised if we saw some sideways movement for a little bit, a drop down back to 12,500, and then some more upwards movement. I think that would be healthy for the market, but we will see. Next, on to Ethereum. We can actually see Ethereum and Bitcoin. Well, it's hard to see with all my lines. Again, I apologize, but they follow a relatively similar movement, as does Litecoin, which I'll be getting to in a minute. But I do think Ethereum is reaching some consolidation. We'll see another growth point. Now that Christmas and the other holidays And New Year's have happened. You'll see more money being given to people that they feel like they should be investing. And with New Year's resolutions coming, I think we could see a small amount of money go into the market. Not given, I don't think New Year's New Year's money or Christmas money is really going to change this multi-billion-dollar valuation of any of these currencies, but I think we could see some more upward movement. In terms of technical analysis, we're at an all-time high on the USD, which I always want to look at Ethereum and the USD first, but then I like to look at the Bitcoin, and I always look on Bitrex just because it's what I personally use in the exchange. And I think on this graph, you can see we are at a relatively low point in relation to its valuation against Bitcoin. Now, I think because Bitcoin is so high in value, we could actually see this kind of, what we're seeing right now, which is kind of this downwards trend here. And this is, my rough hand. This is not actually a moving average. But we're kind of seeing it flatten out. And so, based off of this graph, I think we could see some upwards movement anywhere like that. But I wouldn't bank on it. Again, given that most of the volume, when you look at Ethereum, comes from USD. So I think we are going to see most of the movement come from this graph. And again, same with Ethereum. When it has its dips, it goes below the zero line, the MACD, and we're way above that. So, well, the Bollinger Bands are constricting. I think we could see some downwards movement, even though that's happening. We are meeting the 21-day, which I meant to have this as the 35-day. I use the 35-day in addition to BB's 20. But anyway, so in the 35-day, we've been seeing general upwards growth. And since we're meeting the 20-day, I think we could, if it is going to grow, see some growth in this next, what is this, 5-day period, probably, right here. And I'm changing it to white because it looks nicer. All right. Next, move on to Ripple, our third market mover. Now you can see right here I had a nice little wedge going, and it hit my stop loss as it fell out down here. I really thought we were going to see upwards movement. The reason it fell actually is quite interesting. Oh, also I had to redraw this, but I actually did have it drawn to all the way to right there. But then it fell. The reason it fell is quite interesting. This is when Bitcoin did this little spike. Whoop. And that actually crashed a lot of my technical analysis, and I can show you guys where I was in other currencies before that happened. You can see this is generally what happens. Not always, but if Bitcoin knocks something down, as soon as Bitcoin stabilizes, we're going to see it do the movement it had back when it was here, right? We're going to see it have that spike. So if we kind of just draw the line right over sideways right here, there we go. That's the movement we were supposed to see. Now we're seeing it. So I'm still very bullish on Ripple. I think people... It's not a crypto, it's a currency, it's a fiat currency based in the cloud, and I do think we will see growth just because of people believing in it. Yeah. Next up is Litecoin, which again I look at in USD because same as Bitcoin. Ethereum, I want to see its raw market value. You can see it on the 1 day we're having our BBs tighten. So this could really see some movement, but I think we're going to see some downwards movement first. I think people are moving away from Litecoin. And I think people are trying to get into other currencies. But let's quickly look at it in relation to Bitcoin graph. You can see we're kind of hitting a stagnation point. But we're also near an all-time high, unlike Ethereum, where we're very down low in relation. We're pretty up high here. So I do think it's possible for some movement, but I think we should watch for a breakout. If I were to do some quick technical analysis now, given this is really fast, so please don't give this too much credit. Oh, and when I'm saying all of this, please remember I'm not a financial advisor, nor should you make decisions based off of what I'm saying. I'm just giving you my thoughts and my best guess. But what I am going to say is I see this instantly, and I see that we kind of rejected the drop below this support line. Now, if you're saying, well, we did go below it, what are you talking about, Bowen? I would say, well, it depends on how you view it. Look at it on a 2-hour, you can see it's just whiskers that went below, and we're actually still low and bullish on the MACD. So short term, I'm going to expect some growth from Litecoin. No, that's a terrible arrow. Go ahead and make fun of me. with my arrows in the comments. It sounds good. But on the 1 day, we can see that we're growing quite tight. And so this upward movement may be short-lived, may only reach, $276. But I think we are going to see a drop back down to that value. And I don't know if we'll break it or not. I think if we break it, that's going to be troublesome for Litecoin. And given that this is an ascending line, it would be quite easy to break given our current downward trend. But we'll see. Next up is Dash. Dash, and yeah, I'm not doing Bitcoin Cash. And yes, it's because I don't like it. Sorry. Next to move on, I'm no longer doing it in terms of market cap valuation. I'm doing it just based off of currencies, I think, and I'll describe each one to you. I think these are good ones to watch. That's really what I'm starting with in this episode. And I will take requests for next episode if you guys have certain ideas or things you want to see or certain currencies you want me to do. Yeah, do. And in the future, I'm also planning on doing more technical analysis and less overview. But this is my first one. We want to test the waters. All right. As per always, I started my 1 day and I started zoomed out. Again, sorry for the slow computer, not my choice. So now I will be reviewing everything in relation to Bitcoin from now on because that's how I trade. And I think that's a good way to look at the market because basically if something's not growing as fast as Bitcoin, you might as well just buy Bitcoin. So let's look at it in relation to. So right now in relation to, we were at a quite high point, but now we've dipped down. These arrows were actually very similar to ripples. So right here, the difference is with Ripple, we saw it go down and then shoot back up, remember? But with Dash, we're not seeing that, and that's simply because the volume isn't there and the trust isn't there, which is in Ripple. I think the trust is there. People have trust in it. I don't necessarily have trust in it. Ooh, that's a nice little line. Look at that. Beautiful. Yes, by the way, I would trade off of this line. If you're looking for something to trade off of, I'll give you a free little tip off of something I would do myself. But on Dash, we're seeing just stagnant movement. We're not really seeing whale accumulation or whale sell-off based off of this initial view. I can't say it as a fact. But we're kind of just seeing some stagnant movement. In terms of short term, I think we're going to see a bearish MACD crossover. I think we're going to drop back down. I think we're going to find this as support because Dash is a good currency, or relatively good. I think it's a good currency that has been moving up in rank, which is always a good sign. Next up is Vertcoin, which I think is an excellent currency. And again, we're going to zoom out to the 1 day. I always zoom out to the 1 day just to get the broader perspective. And Vertcoin, you can see, unlike a lot of what we've seen in relation to Bitcoin, including Ethereum, including Litecoin, and including Dash, Vertcoin has pretty much had upwards movement. Now we're very high. We have hit these two spikes, and I do think we're seeing this almost like a massive bull flag. There's the top. There's the bottom. But no, I would not trade off of that just because that's not realistic. These yellow lines are just some various support and resistance lines here. I did some TA on it, and it was looking good. And then again, Bitcoin did this little spike and mess with it. So this was my resistance line, and I actually bought in here, and it went up, and then it went down, hit my stop loss, which was probably here-ish, and then it went down, and now it's back up, which makes sense. I just didn't see it as it crossed this line. Right now, we are riding this support line right here, the bottom support line that we usually see growth after. I thought the growth was going to happen right here, but it almost makes more sense that it's going to happen sooner. Later than that, because right here we saw this decline, right here we saw this decline, then growth, then growth. So I thought this was going to be the next one. But looking at it now, in hindsight's always 2020, we saw this massive spike here, decline, so it had to have some major price movement, and then it had all of this before we saw a spike. And here, after this giant spike here, we had to wait a while before our next giant spike. So to me, it actually makes sense that we have this small spike, and this triangle to me, this downwards angle, resembles this a lot to me, and this small spike here represents this in my mind. Those are kind of correlated. So I do think we will see some good price movement soon. If you're noticing, I'm only using the MACD right now. No, I don't usually do that, but that is just what I'm doing at the moment. Again, because I'm not doing specific TA, I'm kind of doing overview. But in terms of the MACD, we also are seeing, which makes sense. So I'm not at all in any way claiming divergence, but we are seeing more descending on the MACD than descending on the actual price. And I do think that we are going to see some major price. This again just adds to my belief. We're going to see some major upwards price action anywhere in this area, because when the MACD is this low, and the prices are not getting that low. So again, it's not divergence, but it's as close as it can be without being divergence, I think. Excuse me. Next up, we have Cardano, which is number 6 and has moved its way up very quickly in the market cap. So ADA, which I actually do have some quick TA on because, excuse me, I want to talk about it. And ADA is crazy. ADA since, when is this? Late November. So last month has seen 800% growth. And you're probably saying, well, wow, that's incredible. But like Verge is probably going to see a crash now. And again, I'm going to be doing Verge eventually. But I actually disagree. I think ADA is I think ADA is a really good currency. I think, sorry, I went to the wrong time zone. I think it's fundamentally it's fantastic, and I think people also have a lot of belief in it. The only reason I'm weird on doing TA is I was really sure this was going to take off at some point, and then it dropped before taking off. So if you're a long-term hodler, then I would suggest definitely buy some ADA. Again, my opinion. This is not financial advice. This is just what I think. But I think buying some ADA is a really good idea. I personally have some, so I do also want to let you guys know when I have a currency, so I'm not doing anything bad, but I do want to let you guys know I do have some ADA, and I do think we are seeing some sort of, whether it's not a formal flag or not, we are seeing this as the general price movement. I have a support and a resistance line kind of there and there, and you can see we actually tried to break out here, didn't quite do it, almost got to the max all-time price in relation to Bitcoin, but we didn't. And now we're seeing some stagnation, but general rising in price. And I do think we'll see some major movement. Next up, we have Zcash, and I think Zcash is a couple things. Number one, I think we're going to see some really good movement from it. Why? Good question. Number one, I'm now noticing these are having higher lows, and this is having lower lows, so there's that. But I'm also noticing that we have this descending trend. And what happens with descending trends is when you reach the bottom of it, which is hard to predict when, but if you can make a lot of money because you'll see a huge shoot up in price. And you might be saying, well, this is probably the bottom. If it was a shoot up, we're going to see more movement. I don't think so. My belief is that this was another small one, similar to that or similar to that. And I think I drew this one solid support line here, and you can see it actually. So this was all the way from the top of up here to this spike underneath here, and actually happened at the bottom right here, which makes sense to me. This also, if you go over here in terms of price, is lower than its past low. Not going to go any farther up than that, but it is lower than its past low. And this line is really what corresponds to that. And this line up here is from the top of this spike to the top of this spike to the top of this spike to the top of this one. You can see it broke out from that trend. So we might actually see a price reversal eventually. When? Well, because of this MACD, maybe not soon. But I don't know. We are seeing a bearish crossover right now, so I do think we'll see some downwards price action. And I do think it's possible that we'll hit this line, and either we'll kind of fiddle and then bounce through and go down to that line, it's getting bearish. Or I think we could also see it hit this line and then kind of bounce up This is an upwards price action. How much? Is this would be a full trend reversal? I don't think so. I think we're going to have to see it, kind of start to use this line first before we see that parabolic price reversal. Yeah. Next up is Trust. Trust was another one of these currencies that I had TA on, or another one of these cryptos I had TA on, but because of Bitcoin's tiny little spike, that TA got ruined. So let's start off, if my computer will agree with me. My computer's not agreeing with me, so I'm going to say let's skip to RADs, and then I'll get back to it. Yeah, that was weird. So, RADs, Radium. This is something I've been watching, and I think Radium has some serious potential. I don't know much about it fundamentally, to be honest. I haven't done research on it, so I'm just talking about price action here. And we are seeing some upwards movement. If you notice, upwards movement. In Radium, if you have upwards movement, like here, beautiful, what a lovely era, or here, you can see once we pass this line right here, once we pass it, so right now we're on it, you can see we hit resistance here. If we pass it, we could see some huge price action. Because right now this could just be, run up to here and then drop back down. But you could also see a huge run up similar to these. I'd say something to watch just in terms of price action. I don't have anything fundamentally on this currency. Nav Coin. Now, this is something I'm really excited to talk about. So, we saw Verge have its recent run up. Thousands of percent, if I remember correctly. I'll check when we get there, but thousands of percent. And this is security coin. So I started to check out other security coins. Part of the reason I talked about ZEC back here. But Nav Coin is something I'm much more bullish on. I have this over here just to kind of generally show price action. We're seeing the parabolic price reversal that I talked about in Zcash that might be starting, but it's actually happening in Nav Coin. And that's just a visual aid, so I'm just going to take it off. I use the speed-based resistance fan here to kind of really show how I think Navcoin is moving. Right now, we are not having that exponential or parabolic gains. We are more just having a kind of linear growth outwards from this center point here. If anyone's curious why I use the speed-based resistance fan, it's actually because of these yellow lines. These yellow lines do not perfectly match up with the blue. Well, they almost do, but they weren't supposed to. These are actually just lines that are the bottoms and tops, resistance and support lines that are not horizontal and vertical for Navcoin. And then I said, these all look like they kind of originate from one location, speed-based resistance fan, which is a tool I do use. I would recommend using it. By the way, these time frame points are not accurately set, so don't some of those. Navcoin, I think we have three options here, which is what I showed. I think we're either going to see it bounce off of this line, oddly enough, because this is a resistance line, though it is not on the resistance fan. But I don't think that's very likely, because the same reason that this is not a resistance line, or this is not on the fan, this is a resistance line. Then we have a second option here, which is we bounce off the middle line and go up, which I think we have some possibility of doing. And my third option, which is bouncing off of the 0.75 line and going up. Why am I so bullish on it? Again, because just like Verge had, I think we'll see some major growth. I circled this one because I'm really the most confident in this middle one. I think people are going to want some Nav Coin. I think it's a good currency. I think after the recent security coin boom, I think we're going to see some more growth. Next is Quantum Resistance Ledger. This is a currency I actually have some TA on that I want to explain, and I wanted to let you guys know that I fundamentally agree with it. So for starters, just watching the MACD, that looks pretty good. Now it also makes sense because we started down here, but then we're seeing it grows and reaches zero, pretty much flatlines in price, and it's still flatlining in price. But you see this? Now, given I know that's just where it came out in the market, it's been descending since, we're starting to see a reversal. Because here it is down, here it is going down. Here's our first sight in some real growth in a long time. So I think I'm actually quite bullish on quantum resistance ledger. I think we could see some serious price action. Now I drew these two lines just based off of different time frames. So where it was a candle and where it was a candle, again, just depending on the time frame. And I drew them again, depending on time frames, these look better and worse. These were my support lines. You can see we kind of started to cover resistance here, which I drew one bottom to bottom line, which actually doesn't look very accurate, so I'll change that. Kind of strange. One bottom to bottom line. And then our next bottom to bottom line, you can see it's up farther, meaning it's not linear, not going straight like this. It's going like this. And our next bottom to bottom line, again, well, this is linear. But in relation to these, we're starting to make a curve, an exponential curve upwards. So I actually think that this might be the next bottom. And I think we could see this be the next growth. Is that the way it will be? No. I think more realistic is to look at this as oh, well, never mind. I think if we break this line, I think we will start to see this as our new base trend line. But as you can see, in terms of our long-term support lines, we busted through this one, changed our minds, busted through it again, and then decided, yeah, let's take off. And if I extend this one all the way through, hopefully I didn't change it too much, but generally that's what it looks like. Okay, again, busted through it, change our minds, really busted through it, change our minds. Now we're seeing some kind of consolidation. Depending on how you look at this, you could say this already broke up too. Yeah, and I am actually quite bullish on quantum resistance ledger. NXT, this is something I just wanted to talk about. Again, sorry for all these visual, you know what, I don't really need these anymore. Sorry for all of the visual spamming. These were all just support lines, but realistically, I don't feel like I need these anymore. So NXT is a great example. Sorry, I also didn't want to do the vertical one. NXT is a great example, just like EMC squared happened, but this is more recent, so I read this as an example of what happens during a hard fork / an airdrop. And I'm very sorry about how loud my computer is, by the way, and the audio quality. The audio quality will be fixed soon, getting a speaker, but for right now I don't have it. So next video it will be there. But anyway, I wanted to talk about this massive run-up in price. Starting at their announcement and moving up. Or not their announcement, sorry, their announcement and moving up. So when any currency says, hey, I'm giving away free stuff, people want it. And more importantly, people know that they want it, which is market psychology. And if other people think that other people want them, people will buy. So that's why we saw this massive growth. Let's just say starting right here at the bottom of the bottom, not going all the way down there. We saw up to a maximum of 300%, more realistically, 270% growth. That's huge. And similar to EMC squared, just before the hard fork, we saw a drop off in price. Because most of these people don't even want Ignis. They just want the run up that will happen. Like, I actually took advantage of this and I was quite happy with it. And I actually did hold some NXT through the hard fork. And am still holding it because of what you can see happen here. This vertical line is the hard fork. You can see we had purchases because people wanted it. And then as soon as it happened, boom, it dropped in total 50% in value. So that is shocking, except that really it isn't that bad. Ignis was traded for 0.5 for every 1 NXT you held, and Ignis is valued at 2 NXT, aka doubling your price. So if it drops 50%, that means you're pretty much at the same valuation based off of futures, which I don't trust. NXT I'm also quite bullish on as a currency. I think we could see some growth here. Maybe some dippage down to this line first, but then I think we could see some growth. But this is also, I just want to say, usually what happens with hard forked or airdrop coins. This sort of run up right beforehand, sell off before the hard fork or airdrop happens, and then more of a sell-off after the hard fork or airdrop. And then we usually see a little bit of a rebound. Next, I want to move on to Salt. So Salt I've been quite bullish on, and I want to show if I still have. Yep, I still have my full TA on it. So we were seeing some really cool movement where we dropped down, bounced up, dropped down, bounced up, dropped down. This is my predictory line. This is my general price moving line. This is my predictor line. So I thought this was going to happen, except I noticed it didn't look like the last two. This was kind of just more a middle fluctuation. So I actually bought it around here. So I was quite bullish on it. Salt. And as you can see, it's gone parabolic since. Salt is doing extremely well. This is because of its loan release, which people have been loving. And I will be holding Salt for at least the next few years. I think it has potential to go to, 0.1 Satoshis. Maybe that's too much, but I personally think it has huge potential. And short term, that's not the right. Short term, there we go. I mean, we're seeing this upwards growth here, like so parabolic that if I were to draw this line right here, well, it still wouldn't be quite right, because then if I were to draw the line right here, we can see there is, again, more of that parabolic growth. So instead of just staying on one line, it's growing upwards. I think we are going to hit this line, whether straight or stagnate, until around this point. Right here, I think we're going to see upward growth anywhere in here. Salt is a great currency. I truly believe in it. It's a cool lending platform. That's a great idea. I've currently enjoyed my gains, and I hope y'all can see some promise in this coin too. Next up is ARK. So we've gotten down to the end where I've talked about my general overview of these. Now I want to start talking about, just for two currencies, long-term investments. So I'm a huge believer in ARK. I think it's a fantastic cryptocurrency. And I've also drawn some lines here, some really pretty lines. I think ARK has huge room to grow. These red lines are major support resistance lines that I thought were there. Feel free to disagree with me. But you can see we've seen a run-up, a drop. Again, in relation to Bitcoin, we've seen a run-up, a drop-off, a run-up, a drop-off, a run-up, a drop-off. Tried to, but this has kind of failed like it did here. And then it dropped back down. I was really shocked at first, and it was hard for me to hold it through this, honestly, when we dropped through this yellow line, because we hadn't seen that before. But this was during Bitcoin's, massive run up. Like I said, the MACD didn't get a chance to reset in this dip. This dip, if it had been more healthy, would have held out for a little bit, given the MACD a chance to drop, but it didn't. So we saw ARK drop below its TA, and now it's having its rebound I'm expecting. And I'm expecting it to go higher than this, or, bare minimum as high, which, even if from now, is some pretty nice gains. Now, given I'm not looking at this long term, I'm looking at this, this was 4 or 5 months, and I am expecting a similar amount starting right here. Or even longer, given that this and then that took longer. So we'll see. But I'm quite bullish on ARK. And NEO. I'm quite bullish on NEO as well. I know NEO has hurt some of its hodlers before, but I am quite the believer in NEO. I think we can see some major growth from it. I originally grew this long-term descending triangle, and it fell out of it, and I was quite upset until I zoomed out to the one-day view, and I noticed this line, and then I felt kind of dumb because it lines up perfectly. And just like ARK, you can see it lines up perfectly there and there. But just like ARK, we saw a dip through it. And again, this during Bitcoin's massive run up. And these were 3 minor announcements it had. And you can see minor announcements don't do anything to the price. This one did, but I think that's coincidental because of I think that's because of it getting released in various articles and being talked about a lot. And its first, the first currency to be built off of the NEO platform. the, I forget what it's called, the prototype or whatever, was released. Sorry, I'm forgetting my lingo right now. We're seeing upward growth, and I think NEO is going to keep seeing upward growth. NEO is one of my long-term holds, or it was. I sold some because I had to buy some short-term stuff, but it will continue to be one of my long-term holds, and I think it's a good hold. Now we're going to switch to our last 6 currencies, which are a combination of shitcoins and things I just wanted to point out. All of these currencies have very similar patterns. Sorry about that one. That looks a little bit different, but I'll leave that one for last. And these first 2, Digital Note and Verge, aren't shitcoins. They're privacy coins, and they both have followed this very, not the same. I'm not going to say the same pattern, but they both have had a small run-up, and a massive run-up. So let's look here. Small, small, massive. And then a drop-off, obviously. But you're going to expect that. Verge, we've already seen its rebound, which I expected and happened to miss because I was eating dinner, which was a bummer. But, we hit this line right here. We actually saw a drop-off after it hit the line, which was interesting. You can see we kind of carried on the line and eventually just saw it spike right up, which I am totally expecting Digital Note to do a very similar thing. When is this going to happen? Great question. Well, this one already happened. You can see this trend line worked because it shot right up after. But now we've kind of got this mystery space. We don't really know what's going to happen. If you look on the 1 day, or the 4 hour actually, you can see our Bollinger Bands are so tight. Our MACD is about to cross over. Pardon me. I think we're going to see some growth. Whether or not it's not actually this big, at least, I don't know. Well, let's see what percentage. At least, bare minimum 11. If we go to the whisker, we're going to be at 20. And I think we could see some growth to around this area, which is 30%, bare minimum. Again, like Zcash or Nav Coin, I think we're going to see growth from the privacy sector. I think that people are realizing that when you search the blockchain and you can explore any other transaction anyone's made, that isn't a good. That might not be this. It's not the nicest to know what everyone has spent all of their money on. That'd be pretty weird if you handed someone $1 in a store and they knew every transaction made before that. So I think privacy coins are a really good idea, and I think because of this, we're going to see some major growth. Verge, same thing. We already saw some small growth, but 1 day or 4 hour, either way. Not either way. And actually, as you can see in the 1 day, we're turning bearish, finally. I think Verge saw way too big of a run up. But on the 4 hour, we can see it's expected to have more growth. And do I think that's possible? Yes. Am I being very careful? Yes. Verge has already gone up so much. And while these graphs look the same, Verge's percent gain was, I hope I'm not wrong here. Yes, I am wrong. Oh, but Verge's and Digital Note's percent gain was just ridiculous. And we did see it in the other currencies. So I was wrong. It's not that Digital Note had much less extreme run up. 1,500% is nothing to blow your nose at. But 3,700%. Come on, man. Oh, and by the way, if you had been part of the Pure Investments Premium chapter, you would have seen my technical analysis that told everyone to buy in under 51 Satoshis. And if you'd bought in under 51 Satoshis and held, I personally actually sold this little spike up to 60. Still kicking myself a little bit. But if you had held, like I also suggested, because I suggested Verge a long-term hold, you would have made 3,700%. So make sure to check us out at pureinvestments.org. Next is another currency that we can see very similar growth. We had a small run-up, a bigger run-up. The difference is we didn't really have that first one. But with Bitcoin, which is one of our quote-unquote shit coins, we are seeing a kind of similar pattern. I like to scroll out to the 4 hour to check price action. Again, very, very tight Bollinger Bands. I think we're going to see some major price action. Doge, guess what I'm going to say? Also, similar graph. I guess Doge is more similar actually to Verge. More similar to Verge than it is to Bitbean in that way. But Doge, again, 4-hour Bollinger Band's getting tight. MACD getting ready to cross over. Looking bearish again on the 4-hour, but I think this will change. We only saw this drop off because of Bitcoin's small spike. I think we're going to see Doge continue right on its merry way. If you look at Doge in the long term, you know, it 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 has these massive spikes. It's kind of what Doge does. And we actually spiked to here. Could we see a drop down to here? Oh, for sure. I have no doubt about it. But the fact is, you hold Doge, as much of a shitcoin it is, it'll make you money. Fundamentally, it's okay, but nothing better. It's a joke. Um, and next we have two other, well, one that used to be a shitcoin and one that is a shitcoin. So SC used to be a shitcoin. I now have a different opinion on SC than I did. But again, just looking at its growth, you're seeing the same thing. You're seeing, okay, well, the 1 day is a little too zoomed in for SC, but on the 4-hour, you're seeing the same 1, 2, 3, and it was also, here was when McAfee said, oh, buy it, and it dropped down, obviously, because that's how it works. But again, we're seeing tight Bollinger Bands and a potential bullish breakout, though on SC it looks a lot less possible because of this already happening. Though I'm not not that I don't think it'll happen. We're still very large in the 1 day BBs, but as you can see, we're not even close to touching the 21 day. I want to check the 35 day because, again, I'm a big fan of the 35 day. On the 35 day, I just want to check when we've had past growth like this. What's it look like? Because, the past is always good to predict, and it hasn't been long enough for me to check that, so never mind. But because SC is so new, relatively, and has gone down, and now we've seen a reversal, while this could just be a bump and we could fall back down, which is possible, I think because of new stuff being released, good stuff, including the ASIC miner, we could see some major growth upwards, some serious growth. And I'm going to just finish off on my last shitcoin, which followed a very similar pattern to Bitbean, actually. So very similar to Bitbean, in that it didn't have that initial, but it had a 1, 2. And these are just some lines I was using to estimate its price. You can see we had kind of almost parallel lines right here and right here that predict this price movement. And as soon as we broke through, we dropped out of that, and we started moving into this much more downwards kind of trend. Unlike Doge or SC, that's kind of been just moving sideways, RDD has been descending without a doubt. But we did break through this resistance line, the support line here. We didn't break through it in a big way. Once we broke through it, we're kind of just stopping, which makes me very curious in RDD because I'm actually quite heavily invested in it. And I may have to switch that investment because unlike the rest of the things I just listed, that with all of them, the MACD on the 4-hour is crossing over bullish. The MACD on the 1 day is crossing over bearish, but I think we're going to see some bullish movement before bearish movement. Phew. But that was true for XDN, Verge, Bitbean, Doge, SC, and RDD. Are we going to see growth in RDD? I actually think so. That's why I'm so invested in it, is I think SC will see growth. I'm also invested in Doge. We're already seeing some nice movement. Cool. But we'll see if this takes over. Because of this stagnation, I do expect some growth. Last time we saw stagnation like this, we were on the exact same point. And then boom, up. Have to check. Up 50%. I would not be opposed to going up 50%. I actually bought in quite a bit higher. But I do think with these BBs tightening, I think while the time frame may be a little bit longer for RDD, I think we could see some really good upwards growth anywhere in this area. And again, this is not fundamental. This is purely technical for money. And that's just being honest here. I hope you guys enjoyed the first ever Pure Investments Weekly Coin Review. Again, my name is Bowen. I'm one of the staff members at Pure, and I will be making more of these coming out soon. Please leave a comment, like and subscribe. Leave a comment saying whatever you would like, but especially constructive criticism would be great. I'd love to hear what you guys have to think and specific things that you guys want. Also, make sure to check out the description down below to see our website, to see and join our community. It really is the best community out there for crypto, and the most informative community I'll ever be a part of in crypto, that's for sure. Thank you guys for watching and have a wonderful day.